Contemplate the structural obsolescence governing your mind while the power vacuum consumes what remains of your dignity. You crawl through this besieged territory, believing the world owes something to your state of inertia. But a sovereignty of dust is the only throne awaiting you if you continue with that gelatinous spine. I bet every gram of grit that your shameful omission will make you cut this transmission in the first few minutes. The amygdala hijack governing your ghost-like pulse cannot handle the topography of insignificance I'm about to rub in your face. There is no room for wicker comfort in this necropolis of pretensions, only a decree of nullity for those with the metabolism of an inert object and a soul of cotton. If your hesitation is stronger than your will, vanish now and return to the precinct of insignificance where the silence of the omissive is the only law in effect today. The homeostasis of mediocrity is your natural habitat, and low-grade dopamine is the fuel irrigating your atrophied prefrontal cortex. You flaunt a lineage of slackness that can barely support its own weight against the geometry of collapse the world imposes without hesitation. This greeting does not seek your approval. The pantheon of nullities where you dwell has no voice in the council of those who bite into reality with granite teeth. The exile of reason is your punishment for allowing the neurosis of comfort to dictate the rhythm of your heartbeat, while the glass architecture of your life shatters under the pressure of pure truth. Map every structural fissure of your character now, or accept the fate of being just another erased name in the chronology of failure. Lock your jaw, stabilize your 4-count breathing, and face the frozen abyss watching you. Is your fiber capable of bearing the weight of the real? Or are you just historical residue? Answer with the precision of one who cuts through their own self-deception. Operator or inert? Write your sentence in the comments and prove your pulse still has density. Or vanish into the silence of the omissive right now. The clinical dissection of your existence reveals an erosion of will spreading like a systemic failure through the static synapses of your brain. The wall gave way not by external force, but because the wicker pillar you call character was never tempered in the topography of failure. Where a strategic command asset should exist, we find only a secretion of excuses lubricating your descent into the abyss of conformity. The amygdala hijack you suffer before any resistance is the final symptom of a subordinate metabolism, where the spasm of hesitation has replaced the capacity to bite into reality. Every avoided decision and every strategic retreat from discomfort has sedimented the geometry of collapse into your routine, creating an architecture of ruin that cannot handle the slightest increase in operational torque in the vacuum. You are a besieged territory. The diagnosis is terminal for the paperman who seeks shelter in sentimentality against the cold indifference of natural laws. Your flight biology is a short circuit of character-preventing pulse stabilization when the world decides to collect the debt of your millennial inertia. Observe the shameful stagnation leaking from your unfulfilled ambitions and understand that the pantheon of nullities is crowded with individuals possessing your exact profile of volitional degeneration. There is no mystery to your failure, only the mechanical application of existential entropy over a base of loose cotton fiber. While you seek the balm of understanding, reality operates its silent expropriation, removing your access to the power vacuum that the strong occupy by pure grit. Hold your breath, lock your jaw, and watch as your mausoleum of the ego is demolished by simple exposure to the facts as they are. The first step toward operational sovereignty is to incinerate the self-deception that keeps your ego in a state of protected dormancy. The demolition of this mausoleum of pretensions demands that you profane your own rest and bury the nostalgia of who you believed you were before reality bit your neck. Amputate the hope that destiny will ease your path. Hope is the secretion of fear from those who lack the grit to command their own perimeter. By calcining vanity, you release the torque necessary to traction through the rubble, transforming command paralysis into an aggressive action of expropriation over time. Breaking away from the old carcass is a process of useful scarification that clears the ground for the construction of a granite bastion where there was once only sludge and chronic stagnation. Traction through inertia, or accept total annihilation. To reconquer the perimeter, you must neutralize the hesitation acting as a character short-circuit in moments of maximum pressure. Torque gain doesn't come from cheap motivation. but from the excommunication of doubt through the summary execution of every thought suggesting flight as a viable option. Map 3 exit variables in any crisis. Execute the least worst and accept structural damage as the cost of maintaining the logos. The paper sovereignty you once flaunted must be replaced by a shielding of nerve that does not waver before the imminent collapse of external structures. By isolating the anomaly of doubt, you stabilize the pulse and allow the prefrontal cortex to assume hegemony over inertia reflexes. Feel the heat of your old self's incineration and use the ashes as mortar for the new foundation that will never know shameful retreat on the frozen ground. The third layer of rupture demands that you learn to drain the sentimentality, acting as an energy leak in your personal war economy. Every drop of lament is a failure in your architecture of pain, a leak point where discipline drains and slackness infiltrates. Cauterize the ego until it no longer feels the sting of outside criticism or the weight of judgment from the mental plebs inhabiting the vault of stupidity. The mechanical instruction is clear. Reduce your exposure to immediate pleasure stimuli, focus on the immediate task with the precision of a clinical dissection, and maintain silence as your primary defensive tool. Operational sovereignty is achieved when the world can no longer find a soft surface on you to strike. Become the concrete wall that interrupts aggressive mediocrity and bites back at reality. The world is a siege of cold indifference that does not register your screams or your prayers, operating under a topography of insignificance where your personal drama is merely cosmic dust. Nature possesses no organs of compassion, and the cosmos holds no interest in your happiness, only in the maintenance of entropy and the destruction of the fragile. Understanding this cold truth is the foundation for any architecture of sovereignty. It eliminates the childish expectation that reality should be fair or welcoming. You are alone in a territory besieged by the vastness of nothingness, and your only real possession is the integrity of your fiber under constant tension. By accepting that the universe is a potential empire of ashes, you stop begging for meaning and start printing your own will upon the immediate chaos. Coldness is your best and densest operative shielding now. Human insignificance before the cosmos must be used as a decree of total freedom from social pressure and the judgment of peers. If nothing matters on a monumental scale, then the fear of error or rejection is merely background noise in the flight biology of someone with a subordinate metabolism. Use this perspective to shatter the belief in permanent security. Security is a glass illusion in a world of granite. The mechanical instruction here is systematic desensitization. Expose yourself to cold, fatigue, and isolation until the topography of failure is a familiar map where you walk without hesitation. The elite operator doesn't seek warmth in the existential winter. He learns to generate his own internal combustion through dry effort and the technical execution of protocols of operational resistance and sovereign grit. The power vacuum in the universe is the invitation for you to assume the command dome of your own existence without asking permission from the pantheon of nullities. The frozen truth is that no one is coming to save you. There is no rescue planned for those who lose themselves in the abyss of conformity. This perception must act as a definitive cauterization of your ego, removing the need for external validation and transforming you into a self-sufficient granite bastion. The cosmos is indifferent, but you can be relentless in the pursuit of your own order, building a de facto sovereignty where there was once only a vacuum, traction through the ice with the certainty that pain is the only honest data point in an existence based on illusion. The silence of the stars is the mirror where you must see your own brute force, stripped of any cheap and useless sentimental ornament. Pressure is not a burden, but the necessary sedimentation factor to transform the coal of your slackness into the diamond of your imperial fiber. Without maximum load, your structure remains a vault of stupidity, incapable of sustaining any sovereignty project demanding an operator's grit. Pain must be processed as technical data, an indicator that the perimeter is being tested and sedimentation is occurring according to the execution protocol. By embracing tension, you transmute an inert metabolism into a command biology where every muscle fiber and neural synapse is recalibrated to bear the world's weight without structural fissures. The architecture of pain is what separates the precinct of insignificance from the vault of sovereignty, where only those ground down and rebuilt have the right to reside and command chaos. The block of granite you must become demands the absolute compression of all your hesitations under the weight of raw reality. Every failure and every fall serves as the filler material for the gaps in your wicker soul, hardening what was once soft and vulnerable. The mechanical instruction for this stage is progressive load increase. Seek voluntary discomfort daily. Eliminate the use of palliatives for frustration and maintain focus on the geometry of collapse you are reversing. Grit is not born in the absence of suffering, but in the capacity to sustain grit while the nerve screams for a truce. The elite operator understands that the heat of friction provides the hardness necessary to cut through reality without breaking. The world is the pressure, and your will is the incandescent metal that will be shaped by the constant impact of dry granite. Feel the fiber hardening now under the rhythmic succession of impacts life deals against your chest. Every blow is an invitation to mechanical excellence, an opportunity to prove that your homeostasis of slackness has been exiled forever. The vault of sovereignty is built stone by the effort of those who do not accept the decree of nullity imposed by environmental mediocrity. Upon reaching maximum density, you cease being a victim of circumstance and become the architect of your own besieged territory, defending every millimeter of grit with the ferocity of an internal instinct finally muzzled by reason. Pressure sediments authority, and authority is the only strategic asset with real value in this existence of shadows. Breathe in the rubble, lock your spine, and sustain the imperial load until the absolute end of the line. In besieged territory, central command must operate with protocols of surgical accuracy to guarantee the survival and expansion of grit. War engineering demands you bury the nostalgia for easier times and focus exclusively on the topography of the tactical insignificance of your internal opponent. Execute slackness whenever it tries to negotiate terms of surrender in your mind, muzzling the lament with the force of an irrevocable imperial decree. The mechanical instruction is clear. Identify the vector of greatest pressure and move toward it with the aggressiveness of one who despises danger. In the debris of collapse, breathing must be controlled, pulse stabilized, and vision focused on 3 exit variables that guarantee the resumption of operational torque. There is no room for fatal error when unwavering grit is on the line right now. The protocol for breathing in disaster involves the excommunication of doubt through repetitive, technical action. When the structure creaks under maximum load, the operator does not seek comfort. He seeks the precise calibration of his volitional response to the pain stimulus. Map the triggers that activate your hesitation reflex and install functional aggression counter-strategies to stop the moral bleeding before it contaminates the logos. The bastion of stagnation where you once lived must be demolished to make way for a front line where every decision is a high-level strategic asset. Shielding the nerve means accepting that reality will bite, but your granite will bite back with double the force. War engineering is the art of transforming chaos into a geometry of victory, where cotton fiber is calcined and density prevails. Observe the perimeter with the coldness of one who has already profaned their own rest in search of definitive operational sovereignty. Every command given to your nervous system must be executed without hesitation, eliminating the gap between the perception of the problem and the application of the mechanical solution. Command paralysis is punished by the annihilation of grit, and in besieged territory, the loss of grit is the end of the transmission. Crush the illusion that support will come from outside and assume total responsibility for maintaining the vault of sovereignty over your head. War engineering does not forgive amateurism or wicker sentimentality. It demands the precision of a chaos surgeon operating on their own soul to remove the anomaly of hesitation. Torque is your currency. Discipline is your ammunition, and reality is your final, absolute testing ground for those seeking order. The sedimentation of discipline under fire demands you neutralize internal instinct through the exhaustive repetition of high-performance protocols. The elite operator does not argue with pain. He uses it as fuel to traction through the sludge of mediocrity. By reconquering the perimeter, you establish a new command homeostasis where slackness finds no soil to germinate. The decree of nullity that once weighed on you is now the sentence you apply to the mental plebs trying to infiltrate their dome of ignorance into your domain. The war is constant. The opponent is inertia, and the reward is de facto sovereignty over your own destiny. Maintain your granite pulse, ghost vision, and iron will until the last redoubt of hesitation is incinerated in the forge of continuous, relentless action from your dry central command. Useful scarification is the seal of authenticity the world imprints on those who dare to challenge the homeostasis of slackness. Every scar in your fiber is a record of a battle won against the flight biology and the neurosis of comfort that once governed your pulse. The value of a calloused nerve lies in its inability to feel the sting of small offenses and banal difficulties that paralyze the lineage of slackness around you. The expropriation of wicker sensitivity allows you to operate with frozen efficiency in environments that would collapse a paperman in seconds. Looking at the marks of your journey, do not see wounds. See structural reinforcements ensuring the integrity of your architecture of pain under any load. Scars are the stripes of the operator who survived their own demolition and erected a frozen empire. Scarification is not an accident. It is a command tool defining the boundary between who you were and the strategic asset you have become. The calloused nerve is the result of deliberate exposure to the friction of reality, a hardening process transforming the lymph of submission into granite grit. The mechanical instruction here is the acceptance of damage as part of technical evolution. If the effort leaves no mark, it wasn't deep enough to alter your existential density. Expropriate the fear of pain and transform it into a radar, pointing to the areas where the fiber is still soft and needs polishing. Operational sovereignty is forged in dry effort, and the silence of one who understood that a diamond's beauty comes from extreme pressure and precise cutting. Your scars are your true empire, engraved upon the imperial soul with the brute force of truth. Sustaining maximum load without showing structural fissures is the definitive proof that the operator has reached the stature of an imperial column in the architecture of existence. The method for stabilizing the pulse under disaster involves the perfect synchronization between the logos and motor action, eliminating any noise of sentimentality that could compromise the base. When the world's weight tries to bend your knees, the imperial column responds with an increase in volitional density, anchoring itself in the granite of sedimented discipline. There is no room for the spasm of hesitation when acting as the central pillar of a besieged territory. Stability is your only function and your greatest grit. By maintaining an upright posture before the geometry of collapse, you emanate a power vacuum that silences the mental plebs and establishes order amidst the rubble and absolute chaos. Imperial sustainment demands you neutralize existential entropy through the blind repetition of resistance protocols. Every second under pressure is an opportunity to test your will's internal seal against the infiltration of doubt and biological fatigue. The elite operator doesn't seek relief for the load. He seeks the perfection of the form that allows him to carry it indefinitely without losing the horizon line. Pulse stabilization is achieved when pain becomes white noise, unable to interfere with the precision of central command. By becoming the imperial column, you abdicate human fragility to assume the immortality of dry, technical effort. The load is your purpose. Stability is your creed, and sovereignty is the inevitable result of your absolute refusal to yield to the weight of the raw reality surrounding and testing you without end. The discipline of excommunicating doubt and lament is practiced in the liturgy of silence, where dry effort replaces the useless verbiage of self-pity. The operator understands that every word spent complaining is a drain on his strategic torque reserve, a failure in the internal seal that allows the anomaly of weakness to enter. Repeating the effort without expectation of applause or recognition is what grants true density to grit, transforming routine into a rite of constant hardening. In the silence of the existential workshop, the hammer of the will strikes the base of time until the desired form becomes permanent and unquestionable. The liturgy of silence is the ultimate shield against the neurosis of comfort, as it removes the audience and focuses exclusively on the excellence of technical, aggressive operational execution. The excommunication of lament demands monastic rigor in controlling the secretions of fear, attempting to contaminate internal discourse. When silence reigns, the cold truth of reality can be heard without the distortions of the ego or wicker sentimentality. The mechanical instruction is the acoustic isolation of the mind. Close the doors to outside opinions, bury the need to be understood, and operate in the obscurity of duty fulfilled with millimetric precision. Operational sovereignty flourishes in the vacuum of noise, where grit feeds on its own discipline and fiber strengthens in the absence of distractions. By mastering the liturgy of silence, you become immune to the fluctuations of fortune and the emotional chaos of the mental plebs, stabilizing your empire upon the granite of pure action and unbreakable will. Silence is your mantle of sovereign power. The annihilation of the old carcass is the necessary sacrifice for the birth of the elite operator, an entity ruled exclusively by the hegemony of the logos and technical grit. The old identity, based on futile desires and the homeostasis of slackness, must be treated as residue preventing the march toward sovereignty. Upon assuming your new form, you discover that the pantheon of nullities never had power over you. Only your own acceptance of the decree of nullity kept you prisoner. The elite operator has no history, only execution protocols. No excuses, only results sedimented in granite. The hegemony of the logos ensures every decision is made based on raw reality, free from the shadows of the past and the illusions of the future. You are the action in the absolute present of the besieged territory. The new identity is a shielding of calloused nerve, protecting the hard core of your will against the onslaughts of existential entropy. By becoming an elite operator, you accept that solitude is the price of authority and that dry effort is the only liturgy that truly matters. The birth of this imperial version demands you bite into reality every day, reaffirming your domain over the perimeter through the flawless execution of the Iron Order. The old carcass was incinerated in the forge of rupture, and what emerged is a high-level strategic asset, ready to traction in any terrain and under any pressure. Sovereignty is now your natural state, and grit is the only law you recognize. The elite operator does not ask permission to exist. He imposes his density upon the vacuum of the frozen, dry world. The draft of a human being has been incinerated, and the perimeter now belongs to the operator. If you survived the useful scarification and feel the granite pulse stabilize, your journey of transcendence has only begun. Shield your mind against the noise of the mental plebs. Subscribe to Central Command and attest your loyalty to the Iron Order. The next level of density is reserved exclusively for the few with the grit to carry the imperial load without fissures. Share this transmission with those who still have the fiber to be awakened, or let the inert vanish into the rubble. Execute now. The technical sentence is irrevocable. The time of slackness has been executed, and the perimeter is now sealed under the definitive authority of the Logos. There is no return to the precinct of insignificance for those whose fiber was exposed to the heat of the forge, and whose density was tested by the imperial column. This decree ends the demolition phase and stabilizes the new architecture of pain as the permanent foundation of your existential sovereignty. The world will remain a siege of cold indifference, but now it will find in you a granite bastion that does not yield and a will that does not waver before collapse. The final mechanical instruction is blind maintenance of the protocol. Repeat the effort, sustain the load, and excommunicate doubt until your name is synonymous with absolute resistance. The perimeter is secure under your new dry imperial command. The definitive sealing of the perimeter marks the end of this transmission and the beginning of your autonomous operation in hostile territory. You have received the map of the surface, the keys to the torque, and the shielding of the nerve. Use them with the precision of a chaos aristocrat who admits no failure in his domain. Operational sovereignty is not a destination. It is the infinite repetition of the liturgy of silence and functional aggression against your own weakness. The exile of reason has been revoked, and the hegemony of grit is established under the vault of sovereignty you yourself erected with the sweat of your imperial fiber. Do not look back. The ashes of the old carcass have already been blown away by the wind of cold truth. Operate with excellence, resist with granite, and win by imperial decree. End of transmission for those remaining at the central command post.